Hello folks, once again. It's January 11th, 2015, and this is another Playscii dev update. So yeah, I've made some progress since the last video, and I can now happily say that, well, for one, I can bring up the same thing that I brought up in the last video, but now it's actually loading from the disk as a file. And here's what that file looks like in all its glory. And that's cool by itself. That was sort of what was on my roadmap next to do. But it also opens up, it will open old files made with EDSCII, Playscii's predecessor. So this is a piece of artwork, that I made, I guess for my Patreon video. And I wrote some code to dig through this old skunky file format. This was actually very much a case of, sometimes they say that programming is a battle with you from the past. Oh, wait. They say that programming is sometimes a battle with you from the past, and that definitely was in this case. I wrote the original file opening and handling code for EDSCII back when I wrote it in like May of 2012, and it had some problems. Like I was using binary data, but also using line breaks, and then using Python's read lines or something, and so that made the file format sort of complicated to parse through and stuff like that. Adding to this is the fact that those line breaks that it writes into old EDSCII files are different on Windows versus Linux and so forth, so that's obnoxious too, so I had to account for that. So this code is not the most elegant, amazing code, but it does what it does, and it's pretty clear about how it works and all that. And it's only about, I don't know, it's only a couple of dozen. It's only like a few dozen lines of code. So that's not so bad. And the cool thing is that now, whereas previously I could just open up the test scene in Playscii, it's now kind of a cool file viewer for stuff you've made with EDSCII, which is not that cool by itself, but it does mean that, stuff that people have made up to this point and whatever is openable, and that's important for me to be able to just have the artwork that I've already created. I can bring it in. One thing that the import code does is that it brings it in and it assumes that it's all happening on a single frame and a single layer. So obviously, like because EDSCII itself was not capable of layers or animation or anything like that, it's not adding that concept to it. But now you can open up an old piece of artwork and then save it out in the new Playscii format, which is JSON based and a lot more future-proof and easier to parse and stuff like that. This is what the code for loading art from disk looks like. And even though it's like not substantially less code than opening an EDSCII file, it's a lot more straightforward, and we're not doing like weird stuff with line breaks or anything. This is just a very straightforward turning the data that we unpack from JSON into the data structure that an art object ends up having, so that a renderable can then display it. So that's cool, and I'm pretty happy about that. There were a few, I got the basic stuff up and running pretty quickly, but then there were some quirks with parsing EDSCII files and all that. So yeah, yeah, let's see, what else did I want to talk about? I'm going to keep this video short today, I think. Yeah, we do some, I don't know if it's even worth talking about like how to parse EDSCII files. Like one of the weird things is that we need to infer, because like, a Playscii file just writes out like, here are the image's dimensions. And it's all very unambiguous, and it kind of hands the program exactly what it needs to know to do its stuff, whereas EDSCII files are just kind of binary globs of mess, so yeah, like I need to like infer, I look at where line breaks are and I kind of infer the width, and then I infer the height from that, and then I parse according to that structure and blah blah blah. Anyway, I don't know, yeah, it's not very exciting. One thing that you might have seen me doing on this or a previous thing is that I have this config file, this playscii.cfg file, and this is a local only file that really just does some overrides here. Like, yeah, down at the very bottom, after we see up at the top of our main application file here, we import our classes from these submodules, that handle various parts of the program's operation. And so we've got, these things are all namespaces, obviously, and these classes all have defaults, like application, has some defaults specified up in that beginning of class properties block that you can do. And then at the bottom of the file, right before it runs the main program, it actually just runs Python's exec command, and it executes the contents of our config file. And so then all it does is just define alternate, because application and all these other classes are already part of the program's namespace, it will just load these things, it will just override these things. So yeah, that's how I do, and then I've got like some stuff commented out here. Eventually I'm going to create an example config file that will kind of be like the template, and if you don't have a config file, it will create a local config file for you from the example one, just to sort of like show, like, just to spell the program defaults out, so that if you want to change something about it, you don't need to edit the program's source script. Which is cool. And also this file is not, Playscii.cfg doesn't live in source control, so you can have a different configuration file for each machine, and if you zip up a game or something, then it doesn't, you can include that if you want it to obey certain defaults, but people can change it just by editing this file. So yeah, like, I don't know, and so I don't know how standard a thing this is for what people do when they distribute Python programs. It's possible that there's like a security risk or something with running this exec program, because anything in the config file is just, if it's valid Python, it will run. But honestly, like, if you're distributing, if you get a shady build of some weird little homebrew tool like this from somebody and you run it, then you're running an executable that somebody gave you anyway. So that's kind of like the real security vulnerability there. So I'm not too worried about this. This is absolutely like, a homebrew weird kind of tool. So I don't think, if this were an application that people were depending on or something like that, I don't know. Yeah, like, if you have any thoughts on that, then let me know in the comments or on Twitter or whatever. Okay, yeah, I think that's probably about enough on the file loading and saving support and EDSCII file support and CFGs. Yeah, that's about it. Like, next on my roadmap is I am now thinking about UI. I'm going to take, forget if you saw, yeah, let's see, I did a mock-up here. Yeah, like, I did this mock-up a while ago, and this was just purely sort of an exploratory exercise. I'm actually thinking that the mock-up, that the real interface for Playscii is going to be a lot less like conventional and kind of feature encrusted looking than this. Like, I stole the toolbar from Deluxe Paint just because I wanted to have something that looked like a toolbar. But I'm actually thinking that I might still have pull-down menus, because that's how you expose a lot of the functionality. But yeah, I'm just starting to think about, how I'm going to have a UI that draws using its own character set in screen space, isn't affected by the CRT thing. I mean, I could make it affected by the CRT if you really love that, but I kind of wanted there to be like an aesthetic as well as functional separation between the content you were working on and the UI that was operating on it. Anyway, so yeah, I'm starting to get some ideas about how to do UI. I think for my test UI element, just to show that UI is drawing correctly and all that, I'm going to make like just a frames per second counter, because I'm also curious about, how well this app is performing in frames per second. It's probably at 60 on my machine, but I don't know, we'll see. And then just, yeah, being able to toggle that kind of stuff off. I've got a very basic kind of UI going right now, just in the form of, well, it's not really UI, but it's doing a thing that a real application does, which is the program name, and then it shows the file that you have open currently, the full path name of it, and then it shows like the frame that you're on. And in the case of a thing, in the case of a file with multiple frames of animation, the title bar shows which frame. You can see the number up there in the title bar. Anyway, that's not that cool. But yeah, so UI is where I'm going next with this. And that's super exciting, because really, now that we can load and save files, we want this application to be capable of operating on those files and changing them and creating artwork. So that's the roadmap to feature parity with EDSCII. I'm really eager to have people who are making stuff with EDSCII stop creating those old gross to parse file format stuff, you know, the old file format, and using this cool new tool that I think will be better in a lot of ways. So yeah. Oh yeah, one other thought on the UI thing is that I think I want to get a so I think I am probably going to have pull-down menus with the features kind of organized by, you know, by general area of operation. But I think I do also want to keep the command line for inputting like text-based commands from EDSCII, just because I think it's a very expedient way to work. You know, and I think some people will prefer doing that. Like I'll probably like you know, the weird particular kind of I built it power user that I am, I'll probably use that. It's also just like you know, I can be running commands like export to PNG or whatever from within the application and open a new file from within the application before I've built the code, you know, before I've written the code for things like pull down menus and whatever. Yeah, the thing that I would also like to do is have a like Quake-style tilde pull-down console. And I think what I'd like to do there, so that might either replace this bottom command line, or I could also dedicate it to just being able to evaluate arbitrary Python expressions. That's not, you know, Python has the kind of language features that makes that very easy. I could just pass whatever the user has typed directly into the Python interpreter, and you could use it to do things like get the value of properties or set the value of properties, or even like write expressions that you could like that would like change art programmatically or something. That's super exciting and cool. Like I don't think it's what the tool is going to be all about, but yeah, so that's something I would like to do, and it wouldn't be that difficult once I've got my UI infrastructure up and going. A UI infrastructure, by the way, that is kind of a holdover that will kind of be based on, you know, be like a much more upgraded version of what I did for the Ultima 4 map viewer here, you know, where it's like, okay, I can hover over things and I can click on, it's got these buttons I can click on and all that kind of stuff. Again, this was like, I'm glad that I did this because I was able to build like the quick and dirty and not imperfect version of what I'm then going to turn around and do for Playscii and hopefully do it much better. So yeah, that's on the actually, yeah, I might as well just sorry, this is my to-do file, which I think is in the Bitbucket code repository, just along with everything else. Oh yeah, this is if you look at the EDSCII hashtag, folks have been continuing to make stuff with EDSCII, like Mark Wanacott of Cool Tool fame has been doing cool stuff, and Mark actually made some mock-ups for Cool Tool, the program that they're doing, and that's super awesome. Cool Tool is like this whole other radical, like sort of tile-based approach to making a game. So yeah, check out Cool Tool if you haven't. But yeah, and Mark mocked up some of the UI, the Cool Tool UI stuff in EDSCII, and then translated it into the actual, you know, UI plan for it. So yeah, and hopefully the Playscii hashtag will be active with stuff that people are making, or at least stuff that I'm making with Playscii before too long. So yeah, I think that's about all I've got. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to get back to programming. And I hope you all have a nice day, and thank you for watching, and thank you Patreon supporters for continuing to make this possible. Yeah, I'm probably going to put this up along with the previous video as an update for Patreon patrons. The video will be publicly viewable and all that kind of stuff though. So yeah, thanks a lot and have a good day.